Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Friday before Labor Day. We appreciate you being here. It's my pleasure to introduce Miron Livny to you all. Miron is a professor of computer sciences at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the PI of the NSF-funded Partnership to Advance Throughput Computing, as well as the principal scientist for the Center for High Throughput Computing. And today he'll be speaking to us about throughput computing in international CI. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Miron.
Okay, thank you. And it's definitely good to see you all for the effort on the Friday before a long weekend. So let's get rolling and see how far we get. So let me sort of set the goal of this webinar, so we understand where we are heading. So the main objective is to motivate you to get in touch with us at the PASS project if you see potential value in what we are doing. And we really want to talk to you, to figure out whether anything that we do can be of value to you. But as I will point out later in the talk, we would also like to hear from you if we cannot help you and understand where the gap is. There are definitely things that we know that we don't do, but if we can hear more about what you need or what you want or what you dream of, that can help us or will help us to guide what we do and how we do next. So why do we feel that there is potential in what we are doing to those of you who are not yet engaged with us? So we bring to the table decades of experience in innovation, in distributed computing, and in supporting the throughput workload of quite a spectrum of science domains. And these science domains are organized in projects that can range from a single PI to thousands of researchers, like the LHC experiments. So we have seen quite a bit of them. We have been working with them, and we feel that they benefited from working with us. And some of the examples of these communities, and I will give you some more of it with some numbers as we move on. In the NSF context, as I said earlier, ranging from the LHC experiments, then going to LIGO and IGWIN at the International Gravitational Wave Network, the IceCube, the Event Horizon Telescope, and more recently, the Vera Rubin Observatory, are all NSF-funded efforts that we have been working with them, some of them, again, for decades, and we feel that they benefited. So hopefully, those of you that are not working with us will find a way for us to contribute to your science. So PASS is a partnership to advance throughput computing, and there are two members in this partnership. One is the Center for High Throughput Computing in Madison, and the other one is the OSG Consortium, which are pretty different entities in quite a number of dimensions, but I will probably tell you more about CHTC than I will try to explain the history, the structure of the OSG Consortium, and obviously we'll be happy to tell you more if you're interested. But the important thing is that both the consortium and the center share the vision that distributed high throughput computing and research computing facilitation are powerful enablers of scientific discovery. So that's the underpinning vision, and that's why I am here, and that is why we are working hard at advancing the state of the art and the adoption of throughput computing. And a report that came out from the National Academy of Science, it's almost, 5-6 years ago, or even maybe almost a decade ago, that pointed out that many fields today rely on high throughput computing for discovery. So we even got the stamp of approval from the National Science Academies of Science that doing throughput computing is good for you. So in a nutshell, the services that we provide are targeting researchers who have computational workloads that consist of what we view as lists of jobs. And lists of jobs are coming up or are being used in cases where a researcher wants to extract features from each of these images. You know, I just talked to the Rubin Observatory production people the other day, and you know, once again, we have images. We want to extract galaxies out of the images. We have a lot of the images, and for each image, we want to figure out what galaxies there are there, or we want to vectorize an image so we can get it into some AI system. So I have a pile of images, or I have a pile of documents, or I just have a list of parameters in some multidimensional space that I want to explore and run a simulation on each of these points. And some cases are, I have a whole collection of genes and I want to compare them pairwise, and quickly I get many of them. So this is the kind of workload that we see over the years, and that's what we are trying to support the best we can with whatever we do. So we sort of organize ourselves in everything we do under an umbrella that we call the OSG services, which is a fabric of services that I will show you a map in a moment, that sort of span all over the world. And at the center of this is our wonderful facilitation team that is led by Christina, that helps us to get what we do into the hands of the researchers. At the bottom, at the foundation of what we do, are the software tools that we develop. And we have Pelican as the foundation for the Open Science Data Federation, the OSDF, and we have HT Condor as the foundation for the Open Science Pool. So I will not, moving forward, I will not talk almost anything about or say anything about Pelican and OSDF because I believe on Tuesday, Brian Bockelman will tell you everything you need to know about Pelican and OSDF. And I will focus more moving forward on the OS pool and the HT, how HT Condor is used to build pools like the OS pool. So that is sort of the big picture, and obviously there are other things that we do within the OSG services that I don't cover today. And once again, if we talk to you and you say, yes, but all this is great, but we need that. So maybe what you need is hidden in some other services that we provide. So we claim that the OSG services are present in all these dots all over the world. And you can see here that we count, and this is always even a challenge that to figure out what should be counted and how it should be counted, that there are over 340 sites at over 200 institutions that one way or the other our services are touching across the globe. So you can see that we don't have boundaries really to what we do. So if you feel that you have to go beyond the US or you have collaborators across the oceans, then that I think we may be able to help. Again, I just talked to one of the collaborations that said we want to have our data processing, part of it in a US location and part of it in a European location or two European locations. Is there anything that you guys are doing that can help us to make all of this work? So the OS pool is an example of an HT Condor pool that is dynamically deployed as an overlay via the local batch or Kubernetes system. So that is the focus of this webinar. And using overlays, it can be done at different scale and in different modes. So the OS pool is an example of a national overlay HT Condor pool. At the same time, if you look at what the Rubin Observatory is doing, they are using such overlay pool at SLAC and at the summit, that they overlay at SLAC over Slurm and at the summit over Kubernetes. Another example, which is actually outside the NSF ecosystem, is the Joint Genome Institute that provides what they call JOD, which is an analysis workflow service. And they are deploying local overlay HT Condor system over the local batch system at the moment 9 DOE facilities, which are sort of their agents that are operating within each of these facilities. And some of the way that they operate obviously also depends on security and limited connectivity and other kind of things that are different in the DOE world and in the NSF world that we are operating. So just to make it clear that I am not going to talk about all of these condo systems that are deployed locally and are actually serving as local batch systems. So we have over 190 of these that are allowing us to report that they exist, and not all of them in academia. And some of them can be pretty big. I would say that among all these, probably the biggest one is the one at CERN, which has 350,000 cores managed by the condo system. So that is out of scope for this presentation. So we talk throughput computing. So when we say throughput computing, we think about workload that what they do is they take a transformation and apply it to a list of inputs to produce the list of outputs. So from where we stand, what the transformation does, we don't care about. All we have to make sure is that we can execute the transformation and give it what it needs as input and make sure that we bring back and place where it needs to be the output. So at this level, we are trying to be as high level and as simplistic and as abstract as we can. And in many of the cases that we are working with, typically the list of input is, here's a pile of files. And typically, the researcher is happy if they're being handed over a list of output files. And then they do with it whatever they do. I mean, some of it can be then put into tables and stuff like that. But at the high level, it is, give me a file, apply transformation, I will generate a file for you and give it back to you. And that keeps most of them pretty happy. As far as the transformation go, what we see overall that there are more and more transformation that are presented as container images. So, you know, going back to the black and white days where everything was an A.out, now the A.out is basically called a container image. And the list can be organized in directed acyclic graphs, and obviously that can be another topic of discussion about workflows that are capturing dependency between these transformations that go beyond the simplistic view of a list of jobs. But let's, for the sake of this discussion, assume that all we have to do is a list of jobs. And here's some sort of very recent examples. So we have recently a chemistry faculty here in Madison that knocked at the door and said, I would like to run 200 million simulation of proteins. Actually, we have another researcher here that can even with a larger number, but as you can imagine, there are a lot of possibilities when it comes to proteins. Another type of job list is this NOAA project that has over 350,000 raw files of data that originated by ships that collected sonar data, and they want to make them AI ready. So the transformation is take the raw file, turn it into AI ready, whatever it is, and another job list. And then you have a student that wants to study how spiders build their web, and actually in this case, the impact of noise on the spiders and their net and their web, sorry. And she had a little bit over 4,000 video clips, and she needed to process them. So these are the kind of simple job lists that we see. So what do we do for these researchers that have these job lists? So here are some examples and numbers. So Eric Wright, who is just was promoted to associate at the University of Pittsburgh, his lab that is in love with small jobs, in the past 12 months, executed almost 60 million jobs using the OS pool. And here's actually a report that if you join as a project on the OS pool, you can see this kind of presentation of what you did over the last 12 months. And you can see that they are short jobs because they only consume 5 million CPU hours. And they actually, what is nice here to give you a feeling for the distributed nature of everything that we do is in the OS pool case, the capacity came from, in this case, 75 different institutions across the US that Eric and his team were able to harness. Another example, and I'm sort of moving up in the size of, if you want, the community being served, is the Event Horizon Telescope that a couple of years ago presented a nice picture of a black hole in the Milky Way. And to produce this picture, they needed 5 million projections that they executed over 6 months. And these projections consumed 20 million core hours. And once again, they did it all over the OS pool. And CK, who is leading this kind of effort within EHT, made this comment about how the services that we provided EHT impacted their ability to create these beautiful pictures. It's always nice if you have the type of science that ends up with a picture like this. Another example in terms of size, going from EHT to the LIGO or the IGWIN, which is the international gravitational wave that includes the Virgo in Europe and the Japanese, and also now the gravitational observatory that they are building in India. So in 1 week, last week, they did a little bit over 1 million jobs. Now, you can see that they have a pretty aggressive IO or file needs. So these, there were almost 50 file transfer triggered by every job. So they ended up with 57 million file transfers. And they consumed 1.6 million core hours. So in their case, they sort of an hour per job kind of ratio. And as a side note, the pipelines that they are running are typically organized as directed acyclic graphs. They are probably the most aggressive DAG users in terms of complexity in the spectrum of sciences that we are supporting. Then you go to the really big one, and that is the LHC. By the way, a comment that while Eric and EHT use the OS pool, IGWIN is running their own pool. So a part of the services that we provide is to enable an organization like IGWIN to operate their own pool, whereas obviously Eric and EHT have been using the OS pool, which is a shared capability. And LHC, like the IGWIN, is operating their own pool, which is also an international worldwide pool. And they executed in July 46 million jobs. And they are what we see in other mixes, about 10 file transfers per job. So they end up with almost 500 million file transfers in 1 month. And they move in these file transfers 1.2 petabytes of input and output data and consume 300 million core hours. I think their worldwide pool is somewhere in the range of 400,000 cores. So that is what the CMS experiment did. And now when I go to the OS pool in totality, then we saw in the last 12 months over 650 researchers that are actually coming from 120 institutions. So you can see that they, on the average, you can say there are 5 researchers per institution. And this group executed over 400 million jobs in a year. That triggered over 4 billion file transfers, consumed 350 million core hours, and as I said, you will hear more about it from Brian on Tuesday. 10% of the transfers were performed by OSDF. However, what is interesting about this distribution, I think it's almost 70 or 80% of the volume is coming via OSDF. So the heavy lifting in terms of bytes typically comes via the OSDF, whereas the number of files is coming in other ways. So that is sort of a feeling of what can be done and what we do. So who are we? So when we talk about cyber infrastructure, we list it as consisting of people, software, and capacity. And the people factor is the key in our view of cyber infrastructure. And in the case of PaaS, it is distributed across 7 institutions. The software is mainly, as I mentioned earlier, the Pelican platform to be discussed on Tuesday and the HD Condor software suite, where that is what we develop, we maintain, and we support. So as I will point out, as I stress our view of translational computer science, is that we are fairly unique in doing both the development and the maintenance and the support, while we also do running the services and building the community. And when we think about capacity, we assume that it is processing power and storage space, same thing holds for OSDF, that is owned by autonomous organizations. So in our world, the capacity itself is not managed by us. And in this case, we are sort of, again, different than we don't start by building an operating capacity, but we are saying this is whoever has the capacity and whoever wants to join the party, they maintain their autonomy. And again, it can be a subject of another webinar of why autonomy is the cornerstone of distributed systems. Now, most of the past effort or the personnel is enjoying beautiful Madison and is located here in Madison and is part of the Center for High Throughput Computing. And to make things maybe sometimes confusing, CHTC actually spans 2 organizations on the Madison campus. One is the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the other one is the Mortgage Institute for Research. And when you see the affiliation of Brian and myself, who are co-leading the CHTC, you will say something, what's going on there? There's mortgage, there's UW, but that's, it would be best to think about its own CHTC. And CHTC was established over almost a decade ago on the principle, the methodology of translational computer science, which is, in a nutshell, that you innovate in a laboratory, you deploy the innovation as services in a locale, and then you build communities that use these services. And both the communities and the locale provide feedback that goes back to the laboratory. And the time span of each of these activities is different. Innovation is in the range of 2 to 5 years. Deploying services and operating them is in the 5 to 10. And building community, we get into decades. And as I said, Brian and myself are co-leading this group. So we blame others and take credit for all the good things. So how does it work? Or how do we see, from a researcher perspective or somebody who wants to explore our services, it all starts with the research computing facilitation but it can also go through a channel which is technical support and training. And we are happy to provide virtual meetings with a facilitator. Every request for an account on the OS pool, for example, starts with a one-on-one virtual meeting with a facilitator. Our technical staff is always available for one-on-one, and we, the PIs, the 5 of us, are also always available for discussion. For example, in the CC Star program, we provide, I don't know, the order of 30, 40 commitment letters a year. And for each letter, one of the PIs actually has a meeting with the PI that is writing the proposal. We have virtual office hours, virtual training sessions, and we have on the web materials, we have documentation. So there's a lot of stuff, not always easy to find it, not always easy to navigate through it. We are trying to do our best there, and we will help you to find the information you need on page 700 paragraph 15, but there's a lot of stuff out there. And actually, it's interesting to see that if you go to ChatGPT and ask certain questions, they went through all of this, and you can find some useful answers by just asking the AI tool. We conduct, once there is an engagement, we conduct regular virtual meetings with science collaboration and with major facilities. This is all depending on the type of the relationship. And we are also running an annual OHG summer school in Madison, where we have about 60 students annually that come and get educated in throughput computing. So once you survive the facilitation process, the next key element in all of this is the HD Condor access point. The access point can be deployed locally by an organization. So in the example that I gave you earlier, CMS is running its own access point, IGWIN is running its own access point, DOE labs like JLab and Fermi are running an access point, and also the American Museum of Natural History also is running their own access point. We in PATH are operating as a service for the open science community access point, and they are used mainly to harness the capacity of the OS pool or the PATH facility. And we can also operate access points for specific projects. So for example, EHT, we are operating for them an access point actually to the OS pool because they have some special needs in terms of the access point. And for a local demonstration project as part of the National AI Research Resource NEAR pilot, we are also operating, and I don't know if I have the time to, I have a slide that shows what we do for in the context of NEAR. So the access point is where the researcher is placing their work. Okay, and we prefer the term to place rather than to submit because it, I think, captures the trust relationship between the researcher and the access point. And the access points may also store input and output data and the transformation image. And the AP can also be used to issue token or capabilities that are used for authorization downstream in a distributed system. And that obviously is yet another discussion that we can have. As you see, the numbers that I showed you earlier, an access point needs to be capable of managing order of hundreds of thousands of jobs, and also needs to support order of tens of thousands of jobs running, being active concurrently. For the input-output data aspect, we can also interface with OSPF, and I'm sure there will be more about it on Tuesday. And what is important in many cases is what does the access point provide in terms of monitoring, collecting information about what actually happened. So the access point is recording the job records for every job. And we have also tools to ingest it into archival, indexed archival, like Elasticsearch storage. So here's what you can sort of get out of these records. So on the web, we can tell you for the OS pool how many jobs completed 2 days ago, how many researchers, how many file transfers, whatever. This is the kind of report that obviously can be handcrafted. At the same time, I get daily this kind of report from the OS pool, and all this is coming from the job records that were archived into an Elasticsearch by the access point. And there are many opportunities here for customization because the job records are semi-structured, which means there's no fixed schema for these records. Now, what I would like to leave with you is the view of the access point being sort of the entry to different types of capacities. And we have this idea of some of it is open capacity, that like the OS pool, and the other one is what we call bring your own capacity, that you provide the access point with whatever is needed to access capacity where you have special rights about this capacity, whether it's an allocation or whether it is capacity in your home institution or other ways of authorization to access your own capacity. But the important thing is that it all comes through a single access point. And we just had the other week a request from LIGO that had an emergency in terms of a science result. And they said, can we get more or different capacity from the past facility where they have an assignment of credit, and it was relatively easy to bring the additional capacity to their access point since their workload was already present at the access point. Now, when it comes to near, then here's a complex presentation where on the left you have the near access point is where the DAGs actually for training are being presented. And then from this single access point, we go to all the allocated capacity on near resources like bridges and Delta and Expand, and also cloud resources like AWS. Again, we can have a separate discussion of how all this applies to cloud resources. So here's sort of a high-level presentation of the OS pool. I think I covered most of it. Obviously, the slides will be available. I don't know whether I should stop here and open for if there are any questions, because the following slides may go more into the details of how a resource can be brought into an overlay pool and what are the moving pieces there. So maybe if there are any questions, because we have 10 minutes left, I will stop here and see if there are any questions. And if not, I can tell you more stories. And have a wonderful long weekend.
Yep. Thank you very much, and a good long weekend to everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.